Hello food preppers, it's Lozza from the Baking Mad Gym Addict. Welcome again to my kitchen. This week I spent 85 Australian dollars on my groceries. If you divide this amount between the 15 meals, the cost of each meal is roughly 5 Australian dollars and 50 cents, or £3 if you're from the UK, or $4 American and 40 cents if you live in the US of A. Today I have an epic meal prep session planned, so let's not faff about and just get started. Here's what's on my healthy food prep menu today. We have some zucchini topped meatloaf, some chicken breasts, 1 pot of mixed bean chilli, some Superfood Kale Pesto, maple sweet potato topped with crunchy pecans, and some spring onion quinoa. All my recipes are typed out for you as always in the description box below. Feel free to reduce the quantity of the ingredients in half if you don't plan on making as much food as I do. So let's kick off with the zucchini topped meatloaf. You will need 500 grams of pork mince, 500 grams of beef mince. For my friends not on the metric system, 500 grams is around 1.1 pound of mince, a large bunch of parsley, 2 cups of rolled oats, 2 eggs, 2 red onions, 6 medium carrots, 2 zucchinis, 5 tablespoons of Mrs. Dash garlic and herb seasoning, some ketchup sauce and or some barbecue sauce. I'm trying out some organic sauces which I bought from iHerb.com. This is where I usually buy my sauces, seasonings and condiments. If you need a discount code, check out the description box below. To roast the carrots, I also added some Mrs. Dash lemon pepper seasoning and some olive oil. After preheating the oven to 180 degrees Celsius, which is 350 degrees Fahrenheit, I start by blending together the parsley and oats until it looks like this. Then I give my bicep muscles a good old workout by grating up 1 zucchini and shredding up 2 of the carrots. After that, my biceps were absolutely screaming out for a break, and so I chose to peel and slice up the remaining 4 carrots and the final zucchini. Next, peel and dice up your red onion. Once that's done, put your grated zucchini, shredded carrot and diced onion in a big pot. Plop in your minced pork and minced beef and add your oats and parsley. Grab your favourite seasoning and season the heck out of your meatloaf. I added about 5 tablespoons of Mrs. Dash garlic and herb seasoning, but you can use whatever seasoning you like. Remember to add some salt, pepper and some mixed herbs if you've got it. Once you've cracked in your 2 eggs, you can have lots of fun mixing and squishing everything together until all the ingredients are nicely combined. I don't really know why, but I really enjoy mixing food together with my hands. If you're a bit squeamish about touching raw meat, feel free to be civilized and use a mixing spoon. I line 2 loaf tins with a baking sheet and plop the meaty mixture inside before pressing the meat down. The loaf tins then get popped into the oven for around 25 to 30 minutes. The sliced carrots from earlier get laid out onto a baking tray lined with tin foil, sprayed with olive oil and seasoned with Mrs. Dash lemon pepper seasoning. The carrots go into the oven at the same time as the meatloaf. Next, I set about peeling and dicing my sweet potato. I was in the mood for something sweet, and so I decided to make a cinnamon maple sweet potato mash topped with pecans. To do this, I sprinkled some pink Himalayan sea salt and drizzled 2 tablespoons of Walden's Farms pancake syrup onto the sweet potatoes. This syrup has absolutely no calories in it, and it's something which I bought from iHerb.com. Again, feel free to check out my discount code in the description box if you need it. I add a teaspoon of cinnamon powder and roast my tray of sweet potato chunks for around 25 to 30 minutes until tender. While the meatloaves, carrots and sweet potatoes are roasting in the oven, I rinse and drain 2 cups of quinoa. I cook my quinoa according to the instructions on the packet. Today I'm using tri-coloured quinoa, which is a mixed blend of white quinoa, red quinoa and black quinoa. This particular brand took about 25 minutes to cook. By now your carrots and meatloaf should be ready to be taken out of the oven. Set your carrots aside and drain any excess liquid and fat out of the meatloaf. I don't have much here, but this liquid can be used later. Next, I spoon 3 tablespoons of organic barbecue sauce and organic tomato sauce over each of my meatloaves. I top my meatloaves with the sliced zucchini from earlier and add some more salt and pepper. The meatloaves are returned to the oven for a further 20 to 25 minutes until the top is glazed and the zucchini slices are roasted. While the quinoa is simmering away in the cooker hob and while the meatloaves and sweet potatoes are baking in the oven, I chop up about 5 big handfuls of spring onions. At this stage, you might want to check the status of your quinoa to see whether it's finished cooking. If it has finished cooking, don't forget to leave on the lid on the pot for a further 10 minutes and fluff up the quinoa with a fork to get a better texture. Now remember the liquid that was drained from the meatloaves earlier? I used that liquid to saute my spring onions for about 5 minutes to release the flavours. The spring onions then get mixed into the quinoa and set aside. Next, I grab the ingredients for my mixed bean chilli. I used 2 tins of red kidney beans, 1 tin of chickpeas, 810 grams of tinned tomatoes, 2 red onions, 4 vine-ripened tomatoes, 2 teaspoons of garlic paste, 4 handfuls of red and yellow peppers, 3 tablespoons of cumin, 3 tablespoons of chili powder, and 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I start off by de-seeding and dicing up my yellow peppers and my red peppers. Here in Australia, peppers are known as capsicums, but I still call them peppers. Once you've prepped your peppers, give your sweet potatoes and meatloaves a quick check because it's likely they will be ready to be taken out of the oven. Moving back onto the bean chili, take your 4 juicy vine-ripened tomatoes and chop them up into segments. Next, dice up your red onions and grab a really big pot. Into the pot, you'll drizzle some olive oil and add your diced onions, about 4 handfuls of diced peppers and 2 teaspoons of garlic paste. I chose not to use all my diced peppers in the chili because I wanted some of the peppers to go separately into my food boxes. So even though I diced 4 whole peppers, only about 4 handfuls of peppers actually go into the chili. At this stage, I realised my pan was too small for the job, and so I transferred the veggie mixture into a much bigger pot. Next, I added my fresh tomato wedges and poured in the contents of my tinned tomatoes. Now is the time to add your spices. I added cumin spice, chili powder, and 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. If you don't want your chili to be super hot and spicy, you might want to consider adding less cumin and less chili powder to suit your palate. It's best to taste the sauce as you go along and season accordingly. Next, I stirred in my red kidney beans and chickpeas. After tasting the sauce, I decided I wanted to add some extra sweetness to the chili, and so I drizzled in a wee drop of Manuka honey. And that's your mixed bean chili done. Now it's time for chicken breasts. For those that have checked out my previous food prep video, you'll recognise my formula. I lay some cling wrap onto a chopping board, place my chicken breasts on top, cover the chicken breasts with another layer of cling wrap and bash them about with a meat mallet until they're 1 centimetre thick. Next, I take a fork and poke and prick mini holes all over the chicken before squeezing some lemon juice on top. After sprinkling on some Mrs. Dash garlic and herb seasoning, I pop the chicken breasts onto a hot grill pan. It takes about 5 minutes on each side to cook them. When the chicken is cooked through with no pink bits, I wrap the chicken breasts up in tin foil and leave them to rest. This resting process helps to keep the chicken breast nice, moist and juicy. Next, it's time to move on to finishing off your sweet potatoes, which should have cooled down by now. You'll remember that we roasted the sweet potatoes earlier with cinnamon and some calorie-free syrup. I put those sweet potatoes into my Vitamix blender and add 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, some salt and pepper and half a cup of almond milk. Using coconut milk instead of almond milk would be really yummy too. After whizzing the sweet potatoes for a couple of minutes in the blender, I spoon out the lovely, smooth, creamy sweet potato mash into a bowl and chop up some pecans. I love the texture of chopped up nutty pecans with the creamy, cinnamony, mapley sweet potatoes. So delicious! Last but not least, I move on to making some Superfood kale pesto. To make this, all I do is put into my blender 5 large handfuls of kale leaves, 1 large handful of basil leaves, and half a heaped cup of raw cashew nuts. Once that's thoroughly blended, I add half a cup of olive oil, the freshly squeezed juice from 1 lemon, and some salt and pepper. This is what it looks like once it's been blended further. I only use a very small amount of pesto in my food boxes to add extra excitement to the chicken breasts. I keep the rest of the homemade pesto in a mason jar in the fridge, which will last for up to 2 weeks. This kale pesto is delicious mixed in with some zucchini noodles or used as a dip for veggie crackers. If you need a veggie crackers recipe, check out my video in the description box below. Once you've unwrapped your chicken breasts, chop up your chicken and slice up your meatloaf. Now it's time to fill up your food boxes with your healthy, clean meals. I garnish my mixed bean chili with a tiny sprinkling of low-fat cheese and add any leftover fresh herbs. The food boxes I use are the Sistema Clip-It containers, which hold about 1 litre, which is 33 ounces worth of food. I decide how much of the boxes my husband and I will eat for the next 3 days and pop them into the fridge. The rest of the food boxes get stored into the freezer until we need them. Here is a shot of my meal boxes and some snacks which I plan to eat during the week. I'm working on a homemade recipe for some maca coconut balls. Once I've perfected the recipe, I will upload a video. Thank you so much for spending time with me and for watching another one of my food prep sessions. I really appreciate all the comments and photos that you send me and love reading each and every one of them. If you fancy keeping in touch with me, make sure you're connected to my Facebook page and my Instagram account. Until next time, happy food prepping and see you soon on YouTube land. Bye!